this week for our final special segment, as we like to call it, we are going to have a segment titled If We Were in Charge. We hinted at it a little bit earlier, but this is just things about the sports world that we wish would be different. There's plenty of those, but we're going to focus on just a few. And look, especially during quarantine, there's plenty of times to hope and wonder and theorize and, wish that things were,
the way sports should be.
the way sports should be. Exactly.
What they are, yeah. You want to go first?
So I'll go first. So we'll start off, and we'll start off somewhat easy, and then we'll sort of increase with each one. So my first one is get the Detroit Lions the heck off of my TV on Thanksgiving. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I used to know the reason that they play on Thanksgiving every year. I can't remember what it is anymore off the top of my head. I have read it.
Alex, it's tradition, man. That's why they did it in the 1640s. It's tradition.
Any excuse for you to break out a funny voice, you're gonna take it, aren't you?
Well, that isn't the reason that it's tradition, though. Like, that's what they said. It's
pretty much, yeah.
We need to do things the same way, It's tradition. No one does tradition like we do tradition. I know I wasn't going to do that. It was the hour to be presented itself, and so I thought it would be funny.
We've been, for those of you who don't know, we've been trying to figure out how to work in celebrity impressions into the show for as long as we've been thinking of the show, and we've finally started it apparently.
That's a teaser. We'll do an actual impression thing eventually.
Yeah,
that
for
was
sure.
That was just fun.
So do you have more to say on that other than
continue?
Do you have more to say on that other than just do you want the Lions to stop playing on Thanksgiving, or?
Well, I've said for a while, like, I think Thanksgiving for the NFL, Thanksgiving for the NFL should be Thanksgiving for the NFL should be like Christmas for the NBA. Like, put your best teams, your best matchups. Like, put the Chiefs. I want to see Mahomes on Thanksgiving. Put the Chiefs and the Ravens. And it's putting the Steelers and the Ravens, which is like good. I wanted to see the Niners and the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys they get because they're like America's team. They get the highest ratings. Like, that's fine. But I want teams that are good. Good matchups. Things like that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that sentiment of on Christmas Day you have Warriors Cavaliers, you have Warriors Rockets, you have Clippers Lakers, you have all these sort of games that a lot of people are going to want to watch. Whereas, I mean, if the Lions, had a really good year the year before, put them against the Packers or something and do that. Like that, in the fact that the Lions themselves inherently is not a problem, but like just the need to put the same team on every year, I think it's kind of what you're saying is the main thrust of your argument, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone's going to be at home. Like, let's have, look, I mean, if it were me this year, I would have had the Cowboys. Okay, they have to play every year, but have like Bucks, have Brady, Breeze, have Niners, Cowboys, and have like Mahomes, Lamar. Like, that would just be insane. Like, why, why do we need to see, it's always like the Lions against like the Vikings, like, like that's not, I don't know. It's not what Thanksgiving should be. It's not, listen, no disrespect to Lions fans, and I know they haven't been given much like ever. So I'm sure this is like the one thing they have to hold on to. And I don't mean to, if someone may listen to this from Detroit eventually, I don't mean to crap on you guys. I empathize with having a, frustrating team for many years. This may be the one thing that you have to look forward to. Like, I get it. But for the rest of America, that's just not in the top 20 things that we want to see. So, All right. What do you have?
All right, my turn. Yeah. So last year, the Atlantic of Professional Baseball, in sort of conjunction with the MLB. So just as a background, the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball has an agreement with the MLB where over the next few seasons, the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball will test out different rules and systems and methods to see if they're going to be applicable to MLB sometime in the future, if MLB wants to adapt them as rules or systems of how they do the game and things like that. Things like pitch clocks, and the one I'm thinking about here, which is robot umpires. Last year during their All-Star game, and maybe a little bit more as well, that I'm not totally sure, but they briefly experimented with using a robot to help call balls and strikes. And if I were in charge, I would want to explore this idea further. I would put funding and research in to determine whether or not this sort of thing is a viable option, not just for calling balls and strikes, but for more general things in sports. I mean, there should be human error in sports. I don't disagree with that, but I think it should come from the players and not the referees. I mean, you shouldn't have the um, players figure things out for themselves. Like, they shouldn't be their own referees. There should be some kind of arbiter, but you want to make the calls as accurate as possible. I feel like refereeing is, I mean, how often, is there a bad call and that's all anybody can talk about from the game the next day, Like, I don't like when that happening. It shouldn't be like so rife with inaccuracy. And I don't want to put the human umpires out of a job or anything. I'm not doing with that. Like, they should still have a human there to overrule the computers in case the computer makes an error of some kind, which is,
you just mean like balls and strikes. What about like at first base and stuff?
yeah, no, I mean, put it there too. Like, for and not
Could you
just
do that though? Like, would it just test out whether the ball? Do we even have the technology? I mean, I don't even know.
Don't get me wrong. This sort of thing is still years away
Yeah.
from
Okay.
being fully ready to go. But I'm not saying implement it today. I'm saying just look at it further in more depth, in more aspects of games, in more sports, and have humans there to overrule the computers if need be, and maybe incorporate them into the rules committees or something like that, where they can still sort of work in their area of expertise and be helpful and contribute to the betterment of the game. But I want to make umpiring and refereeing as accurate as it possibly can be, and I think computers are sort of more headed in that direction.
Yeah. No. Like, I think that's totally fair. I think I'm conflicted because I think that would get the would make the game pure, I guess, in the sense that you get the higher percentage of calls being right. I think the question that Major League Baseball will have to weigh is it worth potentially losing viewers? I mean, it's possible to me someone might turn on a game and see it being very overly robotic and very, too sort of like, too like sort of structured like a cable news segment and just be like kind of turned off. It's like that's not, it may not be like loose enough for the average viewer. And I might not be a huge deal. I mean, as long as you have the players playing, like that should be fine. But I think some people would legitimately be like, oh, you're using robots? Like, again, baseball, like everything in every sport, like baseball will always have its share of diehard, fans like us who will always watch. But if you're trying to draw in new fans, I don't know if that might be even a small deterrent. And like maybe even if it is, baseball might not even care. But I think it's a good thought. And I'm not sure balls and strikes I'm fine with. I don't know. For every single ground ball. I mean, for every time it being put in play to use it also, that I'm not sure that I'm for.
I mean, look, it wouldn't add any more time to the game or anything, it would, and a lot of them, it would just be for those. It wouldn't really come up except for those bang bang plays. I mean, on most ground balls, you can tell when the player's out. And
yeah.
Like that. So
then my only question would be that sometimes the thing might, so sometimes you can tell like the curveball will come in at a certain angle, but the machine might mistake it as a strike because it came in a certain zone, even though,
And don't get me wrong, I do think you should have one or two human umpires there to be able to overrule a call. That's actually what.
Yeah, but then when do they overrule? Well, why did you overrule for them but not for us? Like that's not like how do you work that?
That is something that would need to be figured out. I mean, you think that if it would be pretty obvious when the computer misses a call that the umpire can.
Yeah, but once that's like the whole free speech thing with Facebook and Twitter, which not to get political, but it's like once you do one, then it's like whoa, then you're like, then you open up Pandora's box. You know what I mean? Not that I don't agree with you somewhat. But they would just have to be some clear line drawn on the sand. Like when do we do this? Because then if you just say, well, we'll review it at our discretion, then you're going to have that person's discretion questioned by fans of the team who gets a call against them. That's
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I get what you're saying, and this is still something that would take, if it were to be implemented, would take years to develop and figure out. So,
but I think implementing some version of it, I think, would be a smart idea. So, okay, the last one that I have been in favor of for a very long time is an 8-team college football playoff. I have always wanted college football to have its own version of March Madness. I would love on New Year's Day to have 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, and 4 versus 5. On New Year's Day, I want college football all day long. Everyone's home. I don't no there's sporting events, no I don't want any other bowl games. Just give me 4 college football games. We'll go from 10 a.m. West Coast time. So I guess it'll be like 1 Eastern, and then we'll go all the way to like midnight or 10 or 11 Eastern. Because by the way, January 2nd is a holiday too, I believe, for most companies. So it's not like people need to go to bed early. So start the games at 10 a.m. and go all the way to 10 or 11, 12. And look, if you need the end of games to overlap with the start of the next game, like that's fine. Do the best you can. But I would love just football all day. I think that would just be fun. Maybe I'm just being greedy because I want sports on holidays. But I would just love it. What do you think?
I do think there should be an 8-team playoff, but I just have a couple points to make on it.
Sure.
One is that I would rather see the quarterfinal matchup spread out over 2 days, not because of the overlap or anything like that, but just because I think that you and me we could sit down, watch it all day, and just live the high life for that 12-hour period or whatever it is, and just love it. I think for the average fan might get a little bit like tired of watching so much football consecutively, and the ratings for the later games might just go down because they're like, oh, I've seen 2 games already. I must move on to the next thing. Whereas I think if you spread it out over a couple days, maybe have 2 of the games on New Year's Eve and 2 of them on New Year's Day or something like that. I think that could be
New Year's Eve. There should never be any games.
Then December 30th and January 1st, or January 1st and January 2nd, potentially. I think that will drive the ratings, make it more interested.
And then my whole thought too is I think I would have. Here, I'll ask you first. What would you have the semifinal games? Because I'll say first, I would have the final be the Saturday between the NFL Conference Championship games and the Super Bowl. So like that, the weekend between, and then you put it on the Saturday, and then it's Super Bowl week. Then you have a weekend with every, and then also too is if the NBA is trying to make itself a year-round sport. Leagues are trying to make themselves in the news more often, and usually the National Signing Day or Recruiting Day is either the Wednesday before or after the Super Bowl. So then you could really have it ends just like with the NBA. You have the finals end, and then a week or two, a few days later, you have draft free agency. I think with college, you could have the same type of thing. But what would you put into sort of the semifinals, sort of in relation to all of that?
I think you'd probably put the semifinals either sort of the week after the quarterfinal games or the Saturday of Conference Championship week for the NFL. That way, it's sort of all football all weekend.
Talk about a fun weekend of football, man! Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, actually. That would be fun. And then you have a week to prepare for the championship game.
Yeah, exactly. And then also one more thing I would say, you didn't touch on this one way or the other, but if there is an 8-team playoff, I don't want any auto bids. I don't want the conference champions automatically get in and one.
That's the purpose, 100%.
Yeah, because I will say you don't want an 8-5 Pittsburgh team to be in the playoff because they got lucky and beat Clemson by 2 points in the conference championship game. And then suddenly and stuff like that. Like I don't want these automatic bid situations. I like the committee setup or something similar to it, where they rank the top 25 and the top 4, or the top 8 or whatever get in.
That's true. Yeah, I think that's true because part of the thing with the top 4 now is they have this holier than thou. We're going to reward you for winning your conference, which is I guess, but it's not really. I mean, I want to see the best teams. Maybe if Team X was in Team Y's conference, then they would have won the conference. So, and I get that there's a million and one hypotheticals you can do throughout sports, but I agree with you. No auto bids. Totally agree.